What's happening, everyone? Brandon and Arron, that guy right there. We are here with grit number 19. Now, interestingly, I didn't post 18 as soon as I should. So I'm going to post 18. If you're watching 19, it's probably the day after 18. Arron, how are you, man?
I'm well. I'm
Good.
well. Feeling good?
Awesome.
How about yourself?
Doing well, thanks. Feeling pretty good. It's almost as if I have rested legs.
I'm sure you do.
So, guys, if you're joining us for the Grit podcast for the first time, by the way, if you're joining for the first time, welcome. Thanks for coming. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all those things. We'd love to hear from you guys. On today's show, the last one that you saw, grit number 18, we're sitting down with Mark and Arron, that dude right there. And it was literally, 8 hours, I guess, or something like that before the 2022 Leadville Trail 100. Arron was running, Mark was running. I was going to be there to pace Arron at mile 62, which is where you're allowed to have pacers, and crew up to that point to varying degrees, which again, we're kind of going to talk about in today's show. What we're really going to look at is, how did it go? It's kind of a very interesting experience. So Arron, before we kind of get down the road, why don't we talk about kind of how you slept getting there that morning, that sort of thing, and then we'll kind of lead right up to the start line.
Yeah. So after our last podcast, we had some food. We went to eat. Mark and I drove into town, had a motel room. I mean, I wouldn't call it a hotel room. But it worked, and it was full of everyone at the race. Everyone, I would say 90% of the people staying there had something to do with the race.
Yep.
Slept pretty good. I mean, I think we went to bed at like 9:30. We were both up before our alarm at 2:00. So I want to say about 1:30, 1:45, we were awake. Pre-race routine went pretty smoothly. Good. Got up, brushed teeth, went to the bathroom, had some food, had some liquid, got ready. And that's when kind of the anticipation kind of starts, the anxiety of getting to the race start.
Oh, I actually have to do this.
Yeah. Well, it was more like, cause you get there and then it's like, okay, we gotta find the parking, and then we got to hop on a shuttle, and then you get to the shuttle, and then we're meeting you there. And, it becomes very real and very immediate.
Yeah, like sudden.
And then you wait.
Yeah.
When I play golf, I like to show up at the golf course 19 seconds before my tee time, get out my car, hit the first ball.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I like to race, is get there, maybe a few minutes and when I say a few minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes to figure out, make sure I've got everything I need, and then go.
Yeah.
So getting there 30 minutes early, you have time to sit and wonder, and you're looking, and who's that? Where's this person?
Because that's the other thing. There are a lot of pros there. I mean,
lots of pros.
Kind of a who's who.
Mm-hmm.
Like even in crewing, I saw, what's her name? Amelia Bowden. Is that her name? Yeah. She was, I don't know if you saw, she was standing right beside you when you came into Twin Lakes, by the way. Just like standing right beside you.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I would, the Pope could have been standing next to me, and I'd been like, please move.
Yeah. So let's talk about the shuttles briefly. So I will say I took a few shuttles during the day, probably I think more than you, but the shuttle system that they had set up, at least getting from the parking lot over by the high school to the starting line. Because for those of you guys that don't know, that you hear about Leadville and it's kind of this legendary sort of thing, Leadville's a very small town. Like, it's not big.
What they say, 3,000 people?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, there's more people there, I would imagine, during Leadville, between the mountain bike race and all those things, and Leadville Trail 100 run. There's more people those 2 weekends than are there the entire rest of the year combined, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, so to that point,
Yep.
And anybody who's watching this who was there on Friday for the pre-race meeting, they said that there's, I think, 3,000 people in the town, and between the mountain bike 100 and the run 100, it gets up to between 8 and 10,000 people that stay for those 2 weeks.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is, which is that town's, that's their 4th of July. That's their Christmas. That's everything to them.
Yeah. It's a big deal. And so with that, like really getting people around to the right places, because there's a nice, good sized downtown, but like there's simply parking is tricky. It's just not big enough to accommodate all the people that are going to be there. So they do offsite parking over kind of by the high school, which is about a mile from downtown. And there's just shuttles. I mean, there's shuttles going everywhere, and there's nobody charges for anything. And it's kind of like, where do you need to go? And I mean, to say that it's like taxi-ish is not necessarily true, but they will take you from the parking to downtown to literally every single aid station, up to Twin Lakes. They won't take you to Hope Pass or Winfield because it's just not possible. But they'll take you to all these different aid stations and things like that so that you don't have to go and park in those places. Now, if you're race crew, you can go and park in some of those places. But if you're just kind of trying to get there, you know, sometimes at Twin Lakes, there was 0 parking. So we'll get to that in a second. So you're at the start, right? And so I met you guys pretty easly. I mean, it wasn't difficult. Yeah. No. There's good cell service. I mean, which is super helpful.
Yeah.
You know, excuse me. So then you get to the start line, right? So 700 people, I think there were 800 people signed up. 700 showed up, something like that.
Yeah.
What was kind of the feeling? I mean, was it standard kind of anticipation, standing in the corral there, waiting for people to go?
For an ultra, it was more than typical for me. I mean, the ultras I have run in the past, the hundreds of 50s to 50Ks, there's anywhere from 100 people or less at the starting line. I think the max is 300. So having 700 plus people felt more like a half marathon or a marathon, you know, Shamrock, rock and roll, something like that, where there's a lot more of everything, a lot more people, a lot more crowd, a lot more going on. So in that aspect, it was fun, but at the same time, you have to keep your body in check because you're not running a half marathon or a 10K. You're running 100 miles.
Yeah, there can be, I would imagine, I don't know, but that in a marathon, certainly not to downplay a marathon. I've done my fair share of marathons, and like there's still a lot of that kind of anticipation, and I've got this big task in front of me, but there can be more of a party atmosphere because on most even bad days, you could walk a marathon in 5 hours and you're okay. 100-miler at Leadville with the elevation gain that's there, that's not the case.
No. No, yeah. You've got at the start, you've got to be ready. You've got to be prepared, and you've got to, again, keep your nerves and your body in check. You can't with a half marathon, 10K, you can kind of go out with the crowd when the gun goes off. With a 100-miler, you can't, because if you spend certain amount of energy in that first 2 miles, you've ruined the next 98.
Yeah. And so from where I was standing, and I'm going to try to put in footage right here.
It's a long walk in the woods, y'all.
I was kind of set maybe 50 yards back ish or so from through the start side, so into the race, I guess, past the starting line. Everybody, they came out, played the national anthem. Everybody got very excited, and dude, 4 a.m. it was like countdown time. 4 a.m. that gun was off. There was no waiting.
It was on the money too.
On the money. And there were some people, there were a couple people, and you'll see it in the footage that has probably already played. There that like bolted off the front, like sprinted. And I don't know why that was. I would imagine, and some of those people were filming, right? I mean, there's a lot of film crew. I was filming. I'm not film crew. I was standing over on the side, kind of holding my phone in one hand and my GoPro in the other. But there were people like, they had crane kind of camera cranes that weren't like, they were using SLRs or mirrorless cameras or whatever it is. But there were people that bolted off the front. And I think that maybe it's just trying to be that first photo. I don't know. I mean, it was weird to me. I was like you said, dude, if I got 100 miles to run, I'm going to take it easy for every single one of these steps, you know?
Well, and it's funny because, as I got into the race, I would talk to a bunch of people throughout the race. Some of them had no intention of going past 50, going past the second aid station.
Really?
Because they had signed up, they got in. It was something they wanted to do, but injury, sickness, whatever, training never went their way. But they didn't want to give up their spot because they didn't know if they'd have a chance to run it again.
That's fair.
So I'm wondering if some of those people were like, I'm going to just bolt. Yeah. I'm going to be that dude who's leaving Leadville for 90 seconds.
Yeah. Well, it was very cool. I tried, like, I was sitting there going, Arron, I was like cheering for Arron. I'm like, Arron.
We were screaming at you. We were both screaming right back at you.
I have no idea where you guys were. Like, even the footage, like, I was watching back and I was like, I don't know.
Well, again, it's like a marathon. Like, you get cattle carted almost, and there's 700 people going down a 30-foot wide road, 40-foot wide road, and everybody wants to go. So so we started on one side and kind of got pushed into the middle. Then I was just like, I would just stay here. We're big enough to knock people out of the way. Yeah. But as we came through the stuff, I was just doing this. Where is he? Where is he? And I could see you with the one hand up and one hand down here. And I was like, Brandon, woo!
Well, because you guys had
look like a deer in headlights, like no idea where it is.
No idea. All you see is like this sea of bouncing headlamps coming towards you, and it was like, well, okay.
Yeah.
It was really exciting. I mean, I always love the start line of races. It's pretty exciting. And what's interesting is that you're looking up toward the start, and it's it's a street, right? It's a 2-lane road and relatively narrow, but you go, oh, well, this doesn't have like the 60,000 people of New York City Marathon or something like that. And it certainly doesn't, but it's still it's more people than you'd think. To me, it impressed me as more people than I was kind of prepared for. But so after you guys kind of went by, it's very like, now we wait type of deal. And I'll tell you, so I was like walking around, I go try to find a shuttle back to the car. Granted, it's only like 1.2 miles or something, but I was, I wanted to be easy on my legs as well. I didn't have nearly as much running to do at the time as you did, but I still didn't want to, like, I don't know, pick my way through the town of Leadville at 4:00 in the morning. Anyway, I wound up just walking back to the car, but as I was kind of like wandering around looking for the shuttle, and frankly, I mean, it's a bunch of people that were looking for the shuttle, so it's not that big a deal. I'm walking toward the parking lot, and here comes this dude probably 7 minutes after you guys started. This is not the dude that you were talking about, because there's a guy that does the thing where he starts X amount of time after and tries to run into the race. This was not that dude. This was somebody who overslept.
Just late.
Yeah, and I felt so bad. Like, there's no one there cheering him on, but here he comes. Race number and everything.
I mean, to be fair, 7 minutes over 30 hours.
It's not that big a deal.
It's not. Now, don't get me wrong. If Dude Man crosses the line at 30 hours and 6 minutes and 58 seconds, I would hope they took his chip time.
Yeah. I doubt it. Something
Right.
tells me.
Right. But
yeah. So okay. So talk me through then leading up to the first aid station. May Queen, right?
yeah, so just about a half marathon in. I think it's like 12.8 or 13 miles, something like that.
Yep.
So we left you, and Mark and I's goal for the first 2 or 3 miles was don't get stuck in the excitement of the race. So don't go out. We had very specific goals to run between 10:30 and 12:30 pace. So making sure we stay heart rate stays real low, real easy on the legs, and we did. I mean, I think we hit our splits kind of like right in the middle for the first 4 miles, but it never broke. The crowd never broke. I mean, for 13 miles, it never broke.
Everybody stayed together.
I mean, there are 800, 700 people running the race, and there are, let's call it 400 hoping to finish.
Yeah.
If not more than that.
Yeah.
So everyone was kind of in that same, it was the first few miles of road, super wide, but still people are real close together. I had put fresh lights in my headlamp, but they weren't, I don't know if I put or fresh batteries. I don't know if I put a dead battery in there, but it was like only half lit. So I just turned it off and just ran with people. Because there was so much lights, and some of these people had like 2,000 lumen headlights. So even if I had mine on, the light behind me was still casting a shadow. So I'm like, screw it, I'll just take it off. And it was fine. I think I tripped twice, but never fell. Used some poor person as a crutch one time.
Nicely done.
Other than that, it was kind of effortless.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that with the full intention of I'm going to have 87 more miles to run. So we kept it real easy. Once you got by the lake, it was beautiful. The sun started coming up. But it was real easy. There were parts where it got down to single track and you had to walk, because if 40 people in front of you decided to walk, it's like rush hour traffic. Everyone stops.
So this is Turquoise Lake, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I was not meeting you at that particular aid station. I was sleeping, trying to because I got up to go to the start, just so everybody knows, and then the next aid station is Outward Bound. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about the trail in between and how you were feeling in between May Queen and Outward Bound.
So that was still mile 20 from 13 to like 25 or something, 26.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, we were still feeling good. Mark and I were still running together. Kept it real easy, real light. I think there was an incline, not a huge incline, maybe 750 feet, 1,000 feet, something like that, which sounds like a lot, but in the scheme of things, it wasn't that much. No. Nothing super steep. Yeah, it was good. I'm trying to remember, because I don't think we hit power line yet.
Yeah. So then there's,
I'm blacking. I'm having a brain fart on where power line was, because that was one section where it did
pitch up a little bit.
Yeah, we started breaking up between 13 and 26, but I can't remember where power line is right now.
Yeah, so I was to meet you at Outward Bound.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this. So when COVID hit, not to sound like a prepper or anything like that, and certainly not to knock that, we have these big 7-gallon water tanks that are specifically made for potable water. And I was like, when I'm leaving the house to come up to Leadville, I was like, you know what? I feel like I need to bring one of these, because otherwise I'm not just in case. Dude, did we need that? Because they were being, and I get it, but it's kind of like if your crew, they were not even letting you into the tents, the aid stations at all. that I experienced to help out. And so Mark had two people there, Heather and Devin. Right.
Yep.
I had never met them before, but Arron, you connected me with Heather, and we were kind of texting, and I found them at Outward Bound. And I had parked, like, there's a field that you parked in. I did not do that. I parked kind of on the side of the road, right by where you guys are entering the kind of aid station area. Cause you kind of you're on a road.
You're on a road for a hot minute too. And
yeah. And it looked like it was one of those things where I could see, cause you can see probably a mile and a half back, give or take.
3. Yeah. I could see the aid station on the road about 3 miles before I got to the aid station.
Oh, wow.
And you could hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Which made it even more annoying. Because I'm like, I just want to get there. I just want to be there. And it's not like a straight shot. It was probably a mile down the road. Right. But you have to go out and then this turn. And then you come down this long straight road. And then as soon as you get on that long straight road, it's still like a good 3,000 yards maybe.
And it goes up. It's like false flatty up from where I was standing. It was
up. It was very, very little, but you're running and you're like, why is this running? Why is it so hard to run right now?
Yes. It's not unlike the Shamrock Marathon when you come around that turn and you see Neptune, but then he doesn't get any closer for like an hour.
Right.
Although on a much different scale. So we got in there and I was like, well, thank God I have this water in the back. And I filled your bladder up, I think, but it was just water. I forget what I did exactly, but and we got you changed, got you in a different shirt. And I remember I was kind of trying to take mental notes because I wanted to be able to A, talk about it, but B, check on you. And I was like, you were processing sweat very well. Like you're very sweaty, which is, I'm looking at it as a very good thing because it means that you're putting that water through your body the way that it should be. You when I saw you, looked like you were feeling good. We got your hydration packs all switched out and all that kind of stuff. How are you feeling at that point?
So I'm going to say it. So going into that aid station, I felt good. Okay. Leaving you, I felt good.
Okay.
Getting to the actual aid station.
We were 50 yards before the aid station.
Yeah.
Because it's a big field. I mean, effectively, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cow pasture, which, by the way, running in that for half a mile was awful.
Oh, God. That sounds terrible.
The race was put on very well. Everything seemed to go seamlessly. They're fairly organized. They've got the logistics of that has got to be tough.
Yep.
Where my irritation, misplanning, and kind of my downfall, and I think Mark would maybe attest to this as well, were the aid stations.
Really? Oh, so that's right. Yep. Go ahead.
So where in the races I've run, and the races that I'm accustomed to, unless they tell you that they're barely stocked aid stations, there is plentiful hot food. I mean, you're talking quesadillas, egg sandwiches, bacon, like real human food. And the few people I had talked to all said that the aid stations were well stocked with real food. Now, again, my real food are hot sandwiches, hot food, things like that. Not pretzel sticks, M&Ms, chips, and eventually broth and half-cooked mashed potatoes.
Well, I mean, it's all carbs is what it sounds like.
It is, and none of it was like, I think at Outward Bound was the first time I saw food.
Yep.
And it was Uncrustable. That was dry and half frozen.
Yeah.
I was anticipating having food, like a more calories, more substantial food.
Yep.
And we would have, both Mark and I, especially myself, would have prepared that. I would have brought, potato and bacon burritos, cheese burritos. Like I would have bought stuff to bring. Yep. But leaving that aid station, I I was not in a good place because I didn't have what I wanted at that point in time.
Yeah. So there's the mental aspect. Right?
100%.
Yep.
100%. I got down on myself because I wasn't prepared, and the race didn't give me what I was anticipating.
Yep.
So for the next 4 miles, like I was slowing down. Mark was like, "We've got to run. We've got to run a little bit. We've got to go." And so we did for a bit, and then and that stretch of road. So you have about almost a mile in that cow pasture, and then you have this long, I want to say 1.5 2 miles of road. That's, I want to say, on average 4% uphill.
Oof.
So you're just going uphill the whole time. And then there's, there'll be a little short, call it 20-meter up, like going up
like
over like a creek or something.
Yeah.
And then you go down for a minute, like, oh, that feels so good. And then you go right back up.
Yeah.
So we were good through that. And then we turned to go towards Twin Lakes. You go off the road, you start getting back on the trail. And at that point, I was down on myself. I hit kind of that dark spot in my race where I was like, this sucks. I don't want to be doing this anymore. I'm irritated that I don't have what I want.
Yeah.
And I just started walking. I was like, and Mark looked back, and I just gave him the go on, get out of here. And so he did. And this is another irritating thing. And had I known this prior, we would have had this conversation.
Yep.
But as soon as you turn off that road and go back off the road and get on the trail, about a half a mile up that trail, there's this long stretch of cars.
Oh.
Where typically people camp and things like that. And there must have been 75 cars of people crewing their runners.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking down with grills, grilling food. People are eating. I'm like, what? WTF? Like,
and you're not supposed to do that.
No.
Right. But
I mean,
it's kind of just unspoken.
People were, I mean, Pacers were hopping in at this point and running with their runners.
Really?
Oh yeah. And while it seems socially acceptable, maybe not race acceptable, but like no one seemed to have an issue with it. I was like, had I known this, I would have told you not even to come to Outward Bound and just meet me 3 miles later and have a full blood, like have the car open and
And there wouldn't have needed to be that urgent, because Outward Bound and Twin Lakes, it's very urgent. And it, to me,
you felt rushed to get in and out.
Yes. And to me, you feel rushed because everybody's cheering and they're like, oh, let's go. Hurry. There's no hurry. That's not a thing.
Right.
I am 100% with you, man. Like, cause my brain, whatever it is, if it's like, let's pack the car, let's get going, let's do this. We're going like to the grocery store. I'm like, no. Chill out. Like, take it down. You'll get these things done 10 seconds slower, but you'll be 1,000% better from a mental game.
It's like you could be efficient and relaxed and not rushed.
Yeah.
So once we kind of got through that, I was starting to get even more irritated that this was happening and I wasn't participating in this piece. And then we kind of get into more trail. And that's when I'm like, all right, dude, get off your sad sack, pull your big boy panties up. Let's go. Yeah. And so I started running again, and then I started feeling good, but it was at that point, it was all gels and tailwind. And I was just craving food
and probably salt. I mean, like something salty, savory, super.
Yeah. So that was at Twin Lakes. I took electrolyte tabs, and the guy was like, these have a lot of sodium in them.
Yep.
I'm like, well, what's the max recommended you can take in one sitting? He goes, I have no idea. I'm like, give me 6.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how much you're processing, right?
Right.
So
all I thought was, worst case scenario, I'm going to pee it out in 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So here's a bit of behind the scenes for everybody from my perspective, which again is not the important perspective, but I had to get to Outward Bound to meet you. So I get on the road and I'm driving there, and it's kind of like you're not driving through town, so you're not driving the course necessarily, right? But anyway, I'm heading toward Outward Bound, and my phone like goes bananas, and so I shut it down and restart it. And then because I always do so on Google Maps, which is what I primarily use on my phone, you can keep offline phones, right? So you can download sections of the country. It gives you all the roads, all that information. So in case you're in this exact situation, it doesn't matter if you have a signal or not because you can pick it up. Well, the problem is Leadville is not someplace that I go very frequently, and it is much further south and a little bit west of where I typically go. So I didn't have Leadville. It was literally, I was looking at the box of map that I have downloaded, and it's just off the box of the map. And I was like, damn it. So I didn't have Leadville. So I power it back up, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It will not find the Twin Lakes aid station or Outward Bound aid station, but it found May Queen. Because I was already on the road to May Queen, and on the race guide, athlete's guide, it says, do not take this road. It says, do not take Route 4 or something along the south shore of Turquoise Lake. Take Route 9 that goes on the north shore of Turquoise Lake to get to this aid station. I'm like, okay, well, I can follow these because I had a PDF pulled up and downloaded of where May Queen was. So I get to May Queen. I'm like, where is the next aid station? And I had this idea in my head of when you were going to hit that aid station. This is this beautifully forested road. It's really gorgeous. It's 20 to 25 miles an hour. I did 80 along this, and it is windy, dude. My brakes were like not thrilled. and I was so pissed off, and I got in there and I'm like trying to text with Heather, but there's no signal. And I finally pulled into Outward Bound, and I had plenty of time. But it was just like, yeah, not great. And then from there, when you left Outward Bound, I was going to go in town. Heather and Devin were going to go ahead to Twin Lakes, and they had a tent roof nest, so they were going to kind of get some sleep at Twin Lakes because there's about 3 hours or so for you guys, the runners, between Outward Bound and Twin Lakes. I was going to go in town, grab some food. Fun fact, went to a restaurant which was good. Service was stood there and waited for a table. No one sat me, so I literally sat at the old school coffee bar, so the service was good, but the rest of the service was crap. And I was like, oh, I'm going to order this. And I look at the menu, and everything is like just egg, which apparently is a vegetarian egg thing. And then, oh, it's like Impossible sausage. And I was like, and then I didn't realize until I was sitting there and I already ordered like coffee and juice that it's a plant-based restaurant purely. I was like, this is some bullshit. Now, it was good, I will say. I won't mention the name because I don't want to put them on blast. It was good. It was tasty, but not my jam. So anyway, and then I was going to head back to Twin Lakes. Headed back to Twin Lakes. So Twin Lakes is a small town, and it's actually super cute. That place was overrun with humanity. Like, it was nuts. Yeah. Everybody had like tents. All the brands had tents. Like, Goo had a tent there, and I was like, here's this, here's this. Now, here's the other kicker, is that as you left Outward Bound or somewhere thereabouts, I texted you, and I was like, what do you want in your bladder? What do you want your hydration set up to be in Twin Lakes? And I didn't hear back. Now, probably because you had no signal, 1, and 2, you were turning your phone into airplane mode, I think, to conserve battery, right?
So the ultra mode I put on my watch, I don't push notifications to my watch.
So your phone is in your pocket. You're not.
So my phone's in my pocket, and it's on silent. So it doesn't vibrate. It doesn't do anything.
Yep.
Until I don't know until I check it.
Yep.
I just didn't check it.
So I was like, what do you need in your pack? What do you want this setup to be? And then like an hour and a half later, because I prepped it quick, and I was like, all right, well, let's get this together. And I put, I think, Tailwind in your bottles.
No, Tailwind in the bladder and water in the bottles.
Yep. It's because you were carrying a 2.5 liter.
2-liter bladder, and then two 750s.
Yep, 750 bottles on the front. Yeah, and I was like, well, this makes it, and it's relatively 1-to-1. I mean, total volume. But I did the opposite of what you were wanting, and I felt so bad. I was like, oh God. So then, but you're coming in, and I'm like, your mind does not give a crap about what I have to say. But I was like, just FYI, here's what's going on. So anyway, how was it coming down into Twin Lakes? Because from where I was standing, like the last 100 yards is like this ridiculously steep downhill thing.
So yeah, coming into Twin Lakes, it's going, once you leave outward bound, you're flat for a while, and then you've got this up.
Yep.
And then it comes back down, and that down is it's 2-mile downhill.
Yeah.
And then it kind of flattens out, and then it kind of goes up a little bit, and then it comes down. And that down is a good down. And then there's this little kicker at the end.
Yes.
I say this little kicker, where it's 20, 30 feet high, if that.
Yeah.
But you kind of go up it, and then as soon as you hit the top of it, the aid station's right there.
It's like straight downhill.
You're talking like it goes down like this.
Yeah.
And the whole time as soon as because you can hear the cowbells going, I'm like, all right, so I've got to be close. Like at this point, I'm not running down this hill.
No.
So I see it. I'm like, all right, I just boop, 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 come down, fist bump the race director, who I looked at apparently afterwards and was like, I don't go away.
I have video of that too. I'll put some in.
But apparently people were going ass over tea kettle on that little downhill.
A couple of them were.
Yeah, and then you come into Twin Lakes, and that aid station again, not what I needed.
Yeah.
But it's once you get out of the aid station, it's like a half mile of chute with tents and
so many people.
I mean, and so for like a half mile, you're jogging, and people are like, yeah, go. I'm like, shut up, I don't care, just get out of my way. But they've got it. They had it cordoned off pretty well, so like there weren't bystanders or crew in the way. But still, I'm like, this is kind of outrageous.
Yeah. So there were definitely some people taking some spills on that last little drop down because I was at the end of town by this schoolhouse, and I'd gotten Heather and Devin up there, and thank goodness, by the way, Heather and I had connected, because there was good phone signal in Twin Lakes, but all the people there's a few thousand people there for this particular piece. And everybody was sucking up so much of the phone signal that it didn't matter that you had good signal because there was no bandwidth. So Heather and I are like trying to communicate. They were way past. She was like, "Oh, we're at the aid station." I was like, "No, you're not." They were way past it, kind of down and around the corner, past the aid station by probably a quarter mile or so, I think. And so they came up to where I was, and we were kind of hanging out there. But there was also a couple people that were coming down the hill, like walking and slowing down everybody else. Cause there was really, I guess you could go more than one direction, but there's really one trail that was coming down that hill. Otherwise it was sketchy. It was interesting. There were some people coming into that aid station, and let's look, from a mileage standpoint, the aid stations are what, 10 miles apart, probably, give or take?
Like 13, and then they get closer. Yeah, it's like 13, then like 8 or 9.
But there were people coming into the aid station or leaving the aid station that were not carrying hydration. I didn't understand that. It doesn't make any sense to me what you're doing there. Like nothing. They didn't have like a orange mud, like one of the belts. They didn't have bottles. I think one person was carrying like a 12-ounce bottle.
So there were a handful of elites that they're elite athletes.
You do you.
Exactly. There were also a lot of people that had, I don't want to call them pacers because that's knocking a pacer.
Sure.
But they had mules with them. They had people with them carrying all their stuff for them and running the race with them from aid station to aid station.
Yeah.
Which is not allowed until you get to mile 62. But at mile 13, at mile 26, that's what was going on.
Yeah, it was. So maybe that's what I was seeing. And so I guess the mules dropped off before they hit the chute.
Especially at Twin Lakes, because there's that down, and all you have to do is go right, and the road's right there.
Yep.
And then you just walk around.
Yep.
Or
you come down and the race director is looking right at you.
Right, exactly. Like, where's your number?
Yeah.
That guy's wearing it.
And it was also funny. There were a few through hikers that were just hikers. They were not involved in the race at all. And this one guy comes down into Twin Lakes before you, I think, and he's like, "Hey, I didn't plan on having a cheering section for my hike today, but here we go." Yeah, it was very cool. And you also had to park though on the road. I had to park probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles from Twin Lakes, and they bust you in.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. So how are you feeling? Did the aid station kind of, the lack of food? I mean, part of you, I guess you expected it. Did that kind of get you back into a similar funk from the previous?
So by the time I got there, like I knew, like I had my hopes for real food were kind of out the window. I was like, I kind of knew what to expect, but I did bring those beef sticks.
Yeah.
And some potato chips and things like that. So getting like the beef stick, like I think it was a Chomps beef stick, 100 calories, but it was sodium and protein, a little bit of fat. Like that was like, okay, I felt good. So had I known, a sandwich, a cheeseburger, a bacon burrito, like something like that would have been great at that point. And as we left, because you guys don't have to. So that aid station they're all double aid stations, right?
Yep.
You go into them twice, but that's the last one before we come back.
Yep.
So you're like, okay, I'm going to have 8 hours. The idea was go get hamburgers, bring them back. So we had real food to eat when we came back down off of Hope Pass.
And Heather was going to get that. I think they were, wherever they were going, they knew a place that they were going to get burgers. I was just going back into town. I would have gotten burgers as well, but she was, she kind of stepped. That was awesome. Yeah. It's got to be very tricky. How did you feel leaving the aid station?
I was in good spirits leaving the aid station because I was still within the time frame that I wanted to be in.
Yep.
I will say the first aid station, McQueen, we hit our our planned split, I think within 90 seconds.
Yep.
The second one, I want to say Mark was maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes ahead of me.
No, not that far.
No, second 10. One, we were still there together. And we were still within 30 minutes of when we wanted to be there.
Yep.
Going into Twin Lakes,
I think Mark 10 minutes ahead of you.
Yeah, he left 10 minutes ahead. He left 10 minutes before I got there.
Right.
I don't know how long he stayed in there.
Not terribly long.
I didn't stay in there terribly long.
You didn't. No.
I did go to the bathroom further, down the road. So I don't know, maybe 10 minutes at most.
Yeah.
Between seeing you, going to the aid station, going to the bathroom, and leaving. Leaving there, I felt good because I'm like, okay, all I've got to do now, naively was go up Hope Pass and go back down Hope Pass.
Twice.
Right. I'm like,
so what time was this that you left? What time did you leave Twin Lakes? I forget. It was 4. So you would have hit Winfield right before 6. So it would have been 2:50, 2 o'clock, somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah, right? I want to say like 1:50, 1:45, something like that.
Okay.
Because the idea was to get there between 12:30 and like 1:30, something like that. And I think, or maybe 12:30 and 12:50 or 1:15, and I got in around 1:30. So I knew I was a little behind what I wanted to, but I had an hour plus before the cutoff.
Yep.
So I'm like, we're still good to go.
Yep. So heading out, you're in good spirits, feeling good. You told me that those Chomps beef sticks, because you were still sweating well because you switched shirts and I don't want to make it weird, but like I'm holding your shirt and kind of, you can tell when somebody's sweating well, but I'm holding your shirt and I'm going, okay, good. This is nice and wet. Like you're actually processing sweat. And then you switched into like kind of a long sleeve hooded, but still very lightweight. So very tech tee material. Going.
That was the Cotopaxi long sleeve, by the way.
Cotopaxi long sleeve.
Yeah.
Dope. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very awesome shirt.
As you then headed out, now this is kind of if there's an iconic part of the race,
this is it.
Be it. How did that feel getting up to, well, let's talk about before Hope Pass itself, the Hope Pass aid station.
Okay. There's a lot before the Hope Pass aid station.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about it.
So you've got this long chute of people, and then you've got this windy kind of single track, like barely your shoe fits on it, going until you get to they call water crossings. I think there's 3 of them. And what I didn't realize before we got there, I'm like, why are these people holding shoes? Like they've got shoes on and they're holding shoes. These people, like who wants to hold shoes for the next 25 miles? Like that seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, you come to 3 water crossings and I'm like, oh, that's exactly why. And then there's like a line of people after the last water crossing sitting down and changing their shoes. I'm like, in 8 minutes, your shoes are going to be dry. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And then you kind of go flat for a little bit more, and then it goes uphill a little bit, and then it starts going uphill a lot of it. And in that section, it's, 3,000 feet of gain, 3,500 feet of gain in a matter of 4 miles.
Yeah.
So
over 10%.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Like at no point does it stop going uphill. So the first mile I get through it, I'm like, all right, this is a lot. Okay.
This is power hiking.
I've got my poles and I'm
nice.
And this is where it spreads out tremendously. You'll be going with somebody and then they stop or you stop. People are dying off. Some people are great vertical climbers.
Yep.
They've got, I don't know, goat legs and they just ding, 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 all the way up.
Yeah.
This is the section that trashed me.
Yeah.
I've done, even when I came out to see you, going from 9,000 feet to 12,000 feet, it was over 7 miles.
Right.
This is 9,000 feet to 12,500 in 3.5, 4 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a lot different.
Yeah.
There is nowhere on the East Coast where you can find 3,000 feet uphill in 3 miles, 4 miles. You can't find that in 5 miles, in 6 miles. So there's just nowhere to train for it here. And after 1.5 miles, I'm like, this is grueling. This is intense. And then you get to the Hope Pass aid station, and I'm gassed. I saw Neil. He was looking out for me. He was like, hey, man, how's it going? I'm like, I feel like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, bro. I am gassed. I'm like, I need some food. I need some legs. And he was like, dude, you're great. You got all the cutoffs. You don't have to worry about it. Grab some food. How can we help? Filled my bottles, topped off my bladder. I had some ramen, which, by the way, if you're going to give someone ramen, at least make sure it's cooked all the way through.
It's a little crispy.
Yeah, a little crunchy, but it was good. I got some energy, and then I'm like, sweet. So we're about to go downhill. He's like, well, you've got to get to Hope Pass first. I'm like,
600 feet.
Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? This isn't. I thought this is Hope Pass aid station.
Oh.
And he's like, well, so you got about another 500-600 feet up, and then you go down. I'm like, okay, sweet. I guess this is what we're doing now. And that's like, and at this point, there are now a lot of people coming downhill.
Yep.
So I would say about 1 mile from the top, the leader was coming downhill. So the first 3 guys were coming down while I was still in the tree line, like still in the trees,
and they're
going
ripping.
uphill. And these guys are flying.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, this is, it's like playing baseball with, the Mets or something. Like you're just like, oh wow, these guys are good.
Yeah.
And then because I know these guys passing me now are top 25, top 10. Like these guys are good. I mean, we passed first 2-3 females at that point. So you've got to move out of their way.
Yep.
Like courteous thing to do is to move out of their way.
Yep.
So I spent a lot of time like up, runner up, getting over.
Yeah.
Runner up, getting over.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't too upset with because it gave me a chance to catch my breath.
Yep. Yep.
But then you get up to the top and you're just like, oh, thank God. And then you're looking at this. I mean, the views up there are magical. Like there's no way to describe it unless you see it.
Yep.
And then you go down
to Winfield.
Yes. And
so
that is
off the back of Hope Pass.
So you're going down off the back of Hope Pass, and it is that same. In fact, it's a little less going down.
Yep.
Because I think you only get to like 10.2 instead of all the way down at 9,600 feet. You only go to like 10,200 feet. But it's in the same 4 miles.
Yeah.
If not less than that. Which for me, I'm typically a fairly good downhill runner, but after 40 plus miles of crashing my legs, it was slow and it was very technical and very rocky.
Yep.
And dude, my quads were getting
just
trashed. I mean, just anytime I could pick up speed, I felt great. And then you would stop because there was a turn or someone coming. I would be like, oh my God, it hurts.
Yeah, because the lactic acid just immediately starts.
Oh, instant. And I'm like, shit, you've got to keep going. If you don't keep going, it gets harder and harder. And then me, misprepared, didn't do my homework. I thought once you got to the bottom, it was like a half a mile of flat, and then you get to the turnaround. No, it's another 3 miles of going back uphill.
Yep.
I mean, granted, it's only it's 1,000 feet over 3 miles.
Right.
But at that point, I was like dejected. I was like, oh, Jesus, I got to go back uphill before I turn around and go back uphill.
And so you had to, that's what I was going to ask you. So you had, you had to be at the cutoff at Winfield by 6 o'clock.
Yep.
And you had to be back at Twin Lakes, back up and over Hope Pass by 10 p.m. So how much in your head, and because it's kind of like you want to be in the moment and focus on the task at hand. But part of the task at hand is understanding what's coming down the road and not overshooting, like not trashing. How much was that in your mind versus being in the moment?
I was in the moment until I started going that last 3 miles uphill.
Yeah.
Because I knew at the top at Hope Pass, I was like, okay, I've got plenty of time. The downhill shouldn't take me though. Now the downhill, I was anticipating, between 10 and 15 minute miles.
Yep.
Because I was like, I can pick up time here.
Yep.
No, like it was still 15, 20 minute miles going.
Because it's too technical and
too technical.
Yep.
My legs are already, I'm losing steam in my legs. And I wanted to make sure that I had enough to get back up.
Yep. Yep.
And I thought it was only 4 or 5 miles downhill and I was done, not the 8 that it actually was.
Yep.
So as I start climbing uphill, someone goes, you guys are looking great. You have 2.5 miles to the aid station. And my body went, what the fuck? 2.5 miles? What do you mean? I thought I had and at this point, my watch had already clicked over 50 miles.
Yep. So
I thought, okay, even if it's off by a mile, if I have a mile left, I'm in good time.
Yep.
And it was 2.5 miles.
Moving
and then
20
the person in
minutes
front of me goes, yeah, and it's 2 miles uphill. I'm like, okay, sweet. And I start looking at the thing. I'm like, all right, if I start clicking off, okay, then it starts I'm like, okay, like I've got to get there because I need time to get back.
So where did you hook up with Mark?
So I passed Mark about a half a mile from Winfield.
Okay.
So I could see him coming down the hill, and I'm jogging at this point, and I'm like, okay, this feels good. Like I'm still going downhill, and it's not super steep at this point. It's very runnable. For me, it was an easy jog, maybe, again, 10, 12-minute pace, trying not to trash my legs too much. I'm like, that's Mark. At this point, I thought Mark was, because I went up that mountain so slow. I was anticipating for 3 miles for him to be passing me going back up Poet Pass.
Yep.
And the closer I got to Winfield, the less the less encouraged I was that he was doing okay.
Yeah.
Like I was like, okay, did he get hurt? Is something wrong? Did he pull out? Did I miss him? Did I black out and miss him going uphill? And then I saw him and I was like, hey man, how you doing? And the expletives that came out of his mouth, I'm like, oh, okay. You feel just about like I do. He's like, I'm done. My legs are trashed. I can't do it anymore. And so I got in about maybe 5:20. And once I passed him, I think that gave him a little bit of a renewed spirit.
Okay.
And so he came, maybe 2 minutes behind me. He comes in. And so at this point we're approaching, I think, it was like 5:33 or something. Cause the aid station people at this point are like, okay, guys, it's 27 minutes till cutoff. You've got 4 hours to get back over. And Mark's like, I'm done. I'm like, should we go? Let's get our stuff together. I had a Red Bull there. I had some food there. I chugged a Red Bull. I chugged some electrolytes, got some food in me. Mark's eating ramen and soup. We get our stuff together. And we start walking out of the aid station, and we turn to go up the hill, and I could see the look on Mark's face, like there's no way in hell this is going to work.
Well, so so let's do the math on this.
It took me, here's the math. It took me 5+ hours to get up and over and down, and I had less
from Twin Lakes,
and I had less than 4.5 hours to repeat that same thing on trashed legs.
Yep.
And it's going into the dark. So the sun's going down. The temperature's dropping. We have $5 headlamps from Lowe's. No real food in our bodies. Like the reality started setting in, like, we're not going to make it there.
Yep.
And then I'm like, Brandon and Devin and Heather are going to be sitting there for hours waiting for us. I mean, you're laughing, but the anticipation was like around 9 o'clock. If we could get there by 9 o'clock, that would be perfect. We were hoping for 8. 9 o'clock was kind of like, if we're there, we're good. We were thinking, if we hustle, it'll be 11 o'clock at night. If we hustle.
Which is an hour past the cutoff.
2-3 hours past when you think we're going to be there. And I was like, dude, I don't know if I want to go up that mountain in the dark.
Yeah.
And if it rains, if anything happens, like we're going to get slower and it's going to get shittier. I'm going to get more upset.
And it did rain, didn't it?
Yeah. And I'm like, it's, like at some point, safety and logical reasoning was just like, look. And I looked at Mark. I'm like, you good? He's like, no, but we shouldn't go.
It's just math. I mean,
yeah,
it's
it is. And so we sat there for a minute, and then we were like, yeah, that's it. Like, it just, I don't know if it, like, in retrospect, I'm thinking, could the fear of dark and missing a cutoff and all that, like, pushed us up that hill faster? And would there have been less people on the backside of the hill that you could have run better? Like, but in the moment, there was just no way it was happening.
Right. And I mean, let me play devil's advocate to the optimism, if I may, with some realism. It's not that. It's that I don't think that fear is the thing. And I'm not you, so I don't want to tell you what your emotion is, but like, if it's the practicality of this, some part of your brain back here going, if we try this, okay, fine, but like, it's just not going to go well. Like, we're not going to there's no way to mathematically make this happen. And then your brain starts to go, okay, well, if I'm not mathematically going to make this happen, is it worth kind of doing X, Y, and Z? Apart from, me and Heather and Devin, I mean, we were fine. I was planning on getting there at 8:30, 8:45, because we could see you're trending backward a little bit. And so like
a little bit.
Well, but I mean, we could see where you were trending and it was fine. But like, again, Hope Pass is no joke. And you can feel as motivated. I talked to somebody. So there's somebody that I know who's a complete narcissist. And they're like, oh, you're never going to, I might get in a race with you, but they're never going to, you won't beat me because I'll break my legs and da-da-da. Okay, well, then I'll beat you because I don't need to go fast. I just have to go longer than you. And your ego won't let you stop when you should stop or slow down.
Right.
So that's not you though, right? I mean, you sit there and you looking at a practicality of going, okay, well, this is not mathematically going to happen. And moreover, if you try to do that to make it what took you 5.5 hours, if you think you're going to drop an hour off of that, it's just not going to happen, because then you're dealing with not just the mileage and the elevation gained, but you're dealing with the compounding effects of those things on already exhausted legs.
Oh, yeah. Once we slowed down, because like going into the aid station, it was like, screw it, we're done. And then I'm like, no. There are people counting on us. There are people that want us to finish. Like, I don't want to let anyone down. Let's gear up. Let's sack up. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that like false sense of optimism, like it lasted 90 seconds. I want to say, like, it was one of those, like, I got my shit together, and then like you start walking and you're like, oh, these legs already feel like shit. I got to go do that again. Like
in the dark.
Like, and for me and Mark, I won't speak for Mark. Mark, if you're listening, put something in the comments. Let us know. But like, it was safety, but there was a part of me that was like, I'd rather get pulled off the mountain and told that I can't go further than pulling myself off the mountain.
Yep.
Like, out of the race, like DNFing because I didn't go, I think was bothering more than missing the cutoff and being told you were not allowed to go.
Right.
So I'd say for 48 hours, 2 days, 2.5 days, that was kind of the feeling of like, I pulled out of the race, not I wasn't allowed to keep going.
Yeah. Well, but it was an inevitability at that point.
Yeah, at this point, I'm cool. I'm fine with it. I'm glad I made the decision I made. But there was a point. There was a few days there where it was like it hurt.
Yeah,
it hurt to not go.
But think about it like this, though. The other thing, from a logistical standpoint, is that at Winfield, you could get a shuttle back. But if you're in the middle of that trail, if you're on Hope Pass, there's no shuttle taking you.
No, there was a girl in the aid station having a full-blown panic attack, didn't want to go anymore, couldn't go anymore. And they were like, you have two options. You go down that side or you go down that side.
Yeah. I mean, to make it clear for everybody, to get stuff to the Hope Pass aid station, they had to use llamas. Yeah. It's not, there's no road. There's no road. There are llamas. That's how they get stuff. They're pack animals, right? I mean, you can't go anywhere. So again, I feel you, man. Like, there is that part where you're like, okay, well, pull me, but don't do this, okay, fine, but to what end?
Yeah.
I mean, so from my perspective, just so you know, and I think I've told you this, but like, so I'm back at the house again. My plan was take it easy. I slept till like 5:30 or something like that. I had this plan, and I was gonna get up and shower just because that's the thing that wakes me up, and I'm in Silverthorne, which was not super far from Leadville itself. And then I was going to go to TJ Maxx or Marshalls or something like that because I needed, if I was going to go to Twin Lakes, I wouldn't have a place to put any stuff. Like, so when I showed up at Twin Lakes, I needed to have all of my stuff and then just clothing that I could dump. So I was going to go get like a $10 pair of sweatshirt, an awesome tracksuit, circa the Sopranos. And because it was freaking cold.
Yeah.
And then just be able to dump it. And so I get in the car. I forget what time I get in the car. Again, I'm planning this around getting to Leadville at 8, getting to Twin Lakes at 8:30ish. Get in the car. I'm literally, there's that windy road outside the condo.
Yeah.
Heading down to go to, there's a TJ Maxx or Marshalls or something right there. And I get a text from you and you're like, I'll text you. I'll read it for you. Let's see.
Well, the funny thing is, it took 20 minutes before I could send that text.
Did it? Oh, because of signal?
Yeah, I checked the time, but I want to say the time on that's probably like 6:20, 6:15. I'm sure it's after 6.
Yeah, you said at 6:30.
Yeah,
6:33. You said we are on the shuttle back to Twin Lakes. I said, "Are you okay?" You said yes, and it took us 5 hours to get one way and had less than 4 to get back. And then we kind of talked about it. Was like, do you want food? What can I do? So it was from my perspective, I just felt there you would not have I think it's probably out of your head now, which is good, but like don't get it like you were going to let anybody down on my end. Certainly not. To me, it was like I was like, oh crap, man, you put in so much work and now you're not getting to do it. But
I saw the whole race.
Yeah.
It's an out and back. I saw the whole race.
So what would you have done differently though? I mean, is there anything because like you said, I mean, other than coming to live out here for 3 months, I mean,
what would I have done differently?
So food, I mean,
I would have brought real food. I think food was a big part of it, but I think training, I mean, we did a good amount of vertical training here, but there's just like, it's one of those situations where you've got to go get on an incline machine or a stair stepper and do it for 2 hours. Like a couple, like a handful of times. Like you've got to stress those muscles going uphill. And we can't do that on a trail out here. So that's what it would have to be.
Yeah. I was talking to Neil. Actually, I saw him like 2 days later. I was outside cutting the grass. And we chatted for a minute. He's like, yeah, when you're at sea level or where you are in Virginia Beach, the only real way to get consistent, and I mean consistent training for that is a treadmill that has a good pitch on it that can get up above 10%, or a stair, not a stair mast, like not an elliptical, but like one of the stairs with the actual stairs.
Right. The rotating stairs. Yeah. Yeah. And that's literally the only thing. And that's what Mark and I were both talking about. Like we've got to find, there's a few gyms around here that have treadmills that go up to 30%.
Yep.
And that's what you need. You've got to have that. You've got to do it. I mean, before I did Bryce Canyon, that's what I was doing, but I was doing 1,000, 15, 2,000 feet at a time. I think my max was maybe 2,500 feet.
Yep.
Going uphill. You've got to do that doing 4, 5, 6,000 feet in one workout.
Over and over.
Yeah.
Like
you got to do that. You got to do that like once a week or every 2 weeks for months.
Yeah.
And we just didn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult to emulate that sort of thing. It really is. It's kind of like the only way to know it is to do it. I mean, Neil, when he was training, because I follow him on Instagram personally, when he was training for Leadville a couple of years ago, he was at Hope Pass every weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like here, and then even recent, because it's not that far, right? It's just finding the time to do it. Yeah,
there was a guy on the the shuttle.
Yeah.
Going back to Twin Lakes with us who pulled out just like Mark and I did. He said he had done Hope Pass 3 or 4 times and could never do it faster than 8 hours on fresh legs.
Wow.
I mean, and this dude looked way fitter than I did.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't say much, but but you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those situations where it's just going up and over is a lot of work. And if you can't get up and over and then turn around and go up and over in X amount of time, you just.
Yeah. I mean, it's a challenging thing. And it did rain, I think. At least it rained where I was. Because there were showers coming through. It was actually overcast for much of the day. I mean, so you had that going for you. It wasn't super sunny and hot.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. I was talking to Neil, the drop rate on the race was 51%. So, I mean, you just fell on the wrong side of that.
I mean, again, I'm not upset with my performance.
You shouldn't.
I was, but now I'm not. I mean, I would, of those who finished, I would want to know, like, some statistics that would be interesting to know would be how many of those came from the East Coast?
Yep.
How many of those had run the race before?
Mm-hmm.
How many of those made up time going back up over Hope Pass? Like, what were there's like, and I'm not talking about the top 25 people, but like maybe like the last 100.
Yeah,
like,
who negative split Hope Pass? I can't even imagine negative splitting Hope Pass. It doesn't.
I mean, I can't if it took you a day and a half to go over the first time.
Sure, fair. But that's outside of you would have made the cutoff.
Right, exactly, 100%.
Yeah. It's a tricky thing, man. So here's the question for you. Well, before I get to that question, how were you feeling the next day?
I was more trash than Mark was.
Uh-huh.
And I say that with, like, walking kind of sucked, but it was, I mean, no worse than racing a 50 miler.
Okay.
So I felt okay. A little slow, like going from sitting to standing, probably stuck the most. But other than that, I mean, I felt okay.
Good. And I asked you this as we were sitting there having some pizza from Windy City Pizza, which I would strongly recommend. Very tasty. What you came off and you were like, nope, never doing it again. When I was on the phone with you. And then we're sitting down eating pizza. You're like, oh yeah, we're already scheming how to do this again. It's like, oh God. So would you do it again?
If everything lined up, I would do it again.
Okay. You want revenge?
I would like to tackle that beast one more time. If everything lined up. I don't think that's going to happen in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But I think down the road, I would like to do it again.
From a training aspect, I mean, because 6 months-ish in advance, right? When the lottery comes.
Yeah, so lottery is like July or January, like 2nd or something.
Right. So it would almost be like, if that were to happen, would you try to come out here a few times to do Hope Pass a couple more times, just to, I mean, there's so many different reasons just to do this, just to do that, but like, would you try to do that?
I would come out and do Hope Pass again, over and back, before putting my name in the lottery.
Okay. Just to see if you.
So, and then if I got in, I would 100% go out there and at least do it once, if not a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah. That, I mean, I have not done Hope Pass. I think I would, I would like to do that before it starts to snow. It's already starting to snow, so we kind of have to. I'd have to do it sooner rather than later. But I mean, it's such, people underestimate, I think, uh, coming out here. People underestimate or estimate Colorado's in Colorado in weird ways, right? A lot of people think that Colorado is this like frozen tundra, and it's simply not. I mean, we do have alpine tundra, which is usually above 10,000, 11,000 feet. Um, but when you are out here, I mean, it's 100 degrees in the summer easily.
Oh.
And I'm in the front range, right? I mean, so like you get up there, there are days in Leadville, it's easily 80 degrees. But so that's one thing that's a little annoying. People think, oh, you're in Colorado, I don't like the cold. And I go, bro, it's like 50 in January. So whatever. Anyway, but when people look at this particular race, you have that, I think we have this idea of what 3,000, 4,000, but pick a number, what 1,000 feet means. That is not correct. Because if you're trying to emulate, even on a treadmill or stair step or whatever it is, you're trying to emulate those sorts of elevation gains, you're still doing it on this machine that's maybe 6 feet long. And you can't really get a grasp of scale and then how the emotions of that play into what you're doing. You know,
you're also doing it on a super flat surface.
Yes,
right?
Completely smooth. There's no rocks coming on.
Yeah, cover that treadmill
and climbing holds.
Yeah, no, in boulders. I mean,
yeah,
6-inch rocks that you have like it's like going up a stair, and then it's flat, and then it's going up a stair, and then it's
not consistent.
No, not no, not even a little bit.
Yeah, it's such a different animal, and I didn't do much trail running before I moved to Colorado, but it's such a different animal. Like even the most consistent trails here, we did Hall Ranch, and there's that backside piece. Well, there are different parts of that are very nice, smooth, groomed single track, and then 20 yards later, you're on this rocky crap that you got to step up over a 3-foot rock and all this stuff. It's just entirely variable, and you can't accounting for that in any way other than doing it is almost impossible. You know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, well, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Honestly, man. I mean, I'm not your dad, but like I think it was just so awesome, and I think that you had. I know you said you went into that dark place after Outward Bound a little bit, but like, excuse me, you mentally, when I saw you, were just in a great place. I mean, you were making "that's what she said" jokes in Twin Lakes. So,
well, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
I mean, even when it hurts, if you can't have fun, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw Sally McRae. She was coming in. She came into Twin Lakes, maybe 45 minutes before you, maybe. And she had done 2 weeks before that Pacific Crest, right? Or the week before that Pacific Crest. The week before that, Badwater. So she was doing this Project Strong thing. And she was obviously in pain, but still smiling and still kind of getting done. Because you're right. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. So what I'd love to do, I already mentioned this to Neil, is probably in the next week or two, have Neil on to kind of like talk about his experience, because he was crewing and he was pacing. You saw him there. But then also kind of from the mental performance, like how do some people, I mean, obviously you've had that kind of 3 weeks or so or 2 weeks to process and to kind of get out of your way. And you've done a lot of that. I'd love to hear kind of some tips and tricks from him of things as that mental performance that he has people. Like I had a medical DNF in Ironman Louisville 2010. And it did not, like, mentally, it just shredded me.
Sure.
And so, especially since I didn't have any control over it, and this is not any different, right? I had a medical DNF because I basically couldn't move my body. It was forces outside of my control that pulled me out of the race. And in this case, it's not any different for you. Forces outside of your control, mostly mathematics, is what pulled you kind of out of the race, right? I mean, so I'm curious, is there a difference between when there's a voluntary, like I'm dropping because I'm just too tired or whatever, or not being able to overcome training deficiencies or whatever it is, or it just doesn't work, the math doesn't work? I'm curious what difference there is from a performance aspect. So I'd love to talk to Neil about that.
Yeah. I'd love to talk to Neil again.
Wow. So before we wrap up, I mean, a lot of people like to hear about gear. So we've got some things coming up. So Arron and I are actually talking about kind of some things that we won't talk about here today, but some things that are what's next. Because I'd love to keep going with grit. And as you guys know, like this it's ironic that our name is Grit. We've always maintained that the grit is about getting to the start line, not necessarily to the finish line. And in this case, no amount of grit, or because Arron, I have no doubt, would have ground the shit out of that. And if you had 7 days to do it, not that you would need 7 days, but if you had all the time in the world and no cutoffs, it would have happened. I'm not worried about that. But it's like the grit of making all these things happen. So we're kind of like looking at some things that we'd love to plan to do. In the meantime, we got a little bit of gear to talk about because we're going to keep doing all this stuff and we need gear to be along for the ride. So Arron's got a couple things. I got a couple things. Arron, why don't you roll some things through first? And by the way, we're starting to roll more reviews out here on the Gearist YouTube channel. So if you're subscribed, please make sure you click the notification bell so you actually see when those are going up. Actually, later on today, we'll be putting up the video review for the Nike Air Zoom Terra Kiger 8, both of which Arron and I have run in and really like a lot. So be sure to subscribe to those. Go to Gearist.com and check out those reviews. Arron, what's the first thing you got there?
So first up is Ultra Tauren 6.
Dope.
Road shoe. I've worn it a little bit today, just walking around the house to try and break it in. Okay. Super cushy shoe. I'm digging it so far. So as far as like immediate next steps for me, I am training for a 50K. I'm gonna do it at pace.
Nice.
So this is going to be a mid-run shoe, like a not easy day, but maybe like a tempo or a faster day shoe. It does have a good amount of stack, and I could run 30 miles in it, no problem.
Nice.
But probably won't. Along that same line, same brand,
the Mont Blanc Boa.
The Mont Blanc Boa from Ultra. This is probably what I will run the 50K in.
Nice.
It still has the
paper
imprint in it. But I did take it out of the other shoe, and it's a very cushy, very nice shoe. I'm very excited for this. This was what I'll be doing my 5K repeats in the park on.
Nice.
So I'm excited for that. And then a shoe that I have run in twice since I've been home that came in the other day is the New Balance
1080
Fresh Foam X More. So it's the new More. So it's huge stack. I mean, you can see the stack on that. Super cushy. As much as I love Hoka,
yep.
This is replacing the Bondi for me.
Okay.
I do like this shoe very much. It's got a sweet little, there's light here. But there's like a
channel.
Like a channel down there. So it's very, very fun shoe.
Nice.
Pretty excited for that. So that's going to be my daily trainer.
I love that. That's awesome, man. So I've got things that are not shoes. Two things. One, this is from UCO. So this is an actually completely self-contained mess kit. So like when you're doing, whether you're going camping, you're doing something like exactly like what, I mean, can you imagine having this? And I go here, not that you need, I mean, you probably just dig food up with your hands if you're in the middle of Leadville, but like it's got a completely self-contained mess kit, whether it's got silverware, it's got all the storage, all those things. So loving this because especially when we go camping, the more things that we can keep in a more compact package, it makes it so much easier. And then this, I don't think I talked about this yet. So Sydney and I were supposed to do Longs Peak this past weekend. Longs Peak, for those of you who don't know, it is the highest point in Rocky Mountain National Park. It's 14,259 feet. And is a very technical, the last mile and a half to the summit is a very technical scramble, for lack of a better word. And on the way up, you pass a lot of, you did, Arron, right? So you did to Chasm Lake, which is the same trail for basically the first 5 miles or so, ish. Well, there's a lot of mosquitoes on that because there's a ton of water that's coming off. It's all a bunch of snow runoff and glacial runoff. And so this guy right here, this is the 360. What is this called? This is the mosquito thermocell. And basically, this is meant to recharge. So it is USB rechargeable. And then this particular model is kind of their hiking model. And it goes, there's a carabiner that goes on your pack. And it creates this, like, I'll put this up here, this like 20-foot zone of essentially mosquito eradication. And I will say we have one of these on our front porch. Does an amazing job. The downside to hiking with something like this is that because it's kind of it's very scent free, but what it does is it heats up this little, it heats up this thing right here. And that kind of has a liquid in it. And it doesn't smell like anything, but it keeps mosquitoes away. So the downside is that if you're carrying this on your pack with the carabiner as you walk, it's not going to get out in front of you because it's not being actively sprayed anywhere, right? But the point is that when you stop at a waterfall or something like that to take a break or what have you, it's going to kind of help eradicate those things. So you could put it in front of you and potentially keep them off a little bit more. I love that thing. Again, thermocell mosquito repellent thing. Again, this thing is really great for traveling. Again, we have kind of the non-travel version on our front porch, and again, works spectacularly. So, anyway,
I need one of those for my house.
You do, dude. Like Virginia state bird. Everybody jokes. Yes, it's the cardinal. It's also the mosquito. Dead serious.
Yeah.
Well, Arron, hey, I'm proud of you, man. Honestly, it's pretty exciting, the things we've got coming up, guys. Gearist is ramping back up in a big way, obviously. We've got a ton of gear reviews coming out. We actually have also, we're kind of getting into that fall apparel right now because it's August 30th as we record this. That autumn running apparel. If you guys have something in particular that is the cold weather stuff that you want to hear us talk about that may be outside of the normal purview of what we do at Gearist, let us know. And in fact, so one of the most popular videos, the most popular video we have on the Gearist YouTube channel is a video all about the basics of bicycle shifting. So we're working on some things like major ways or kind of the main ways to build a campfire, things like that. So what are some things outside of, here's this piece of gear I want to hear you talk about? What are some other things that you guys want us to talk about, right? So is it how to build a campfire? Is it how to forage for mushrooms, which is something I've been doing like crazy lately, and I'm kind of a nerd and my wife makes fun of me. What are some of those things that you guys want to hear about? Please let us know down in the comments or let us know on the socials. You can follow me on Instagram at Gearist, Gearist. And then Arron is at ARRONGARROD. Please follow us on Instagram. Let us know what's up. Tell us, hey, follow us on Facebook, all of that kind of stuff. Any way you want to get in touch with us. This has been grit number 19. You probably, if you're a subscriber, are going to hear this immediately after grit number 18 with Mark and Arron the night before. Thanks, guys. Arron, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure as always. Guys, have a good one. Get out there, get after it, never stop grinding. See you guys.